My name is Ewelina Szpak and I represent academic department of the NRS. I also work at the Institute of History of Polish Academy of Sciences, where I specialize in the social cultural history of 20th century Poland. And as it was mentioned, I was also a member of a team responsible for preparing this exhibition. So I'm going to tell a bit about it, and I hope that Ula can share a screen with our online version of that exhibition. So After the Great War exhibition was first presented in 2018 in Prague, and then it began its international journey across Europe, main European capital cities, but not only. And over the following 7 years, it visited at least 14 countries, including Germany, France, Ireland, Slovak Republic, Croatia, Austria, Romania, Lithuania, and several others. And of course, the year 2018 was not accidental. The exhibition was part of a centenary commemorations of the end of the First World War, and in Poland and many other countries of our region, Central and Eastern Europe, also the 100th anniversary of regaining independence of or founding a state. But what we really wanted to show through our exhibition was that although 1918 marks an important historical turning point, it didn't change Europe overnight. The armistice was signed in 1918, the peace treaties in 1919, 1920s, but the first years after the war did not bring peace, especially not to Central Europe. And these years were still marked by conflicts, political tensions, wars over borders, and this is the story actually that we are telling through this exhibition. And at the same time, we wanted to also to include the diverse perspective of all actors on the Central European stage of that time, so both victors and defeated countries. We aim to capture what the year 1918 meant for each country, and how each country, how it shaped actually the identity of each country's societies. So in the exhibition, we show how the war was commemorated in different states, what was highlighted, but also what was silenced and why. In the final part of the exhibition, we look at the contemporary memories as well, memories of that period, how they have evolved, how they were sometimes instrumentalized, how they differ, and where they overlap. We wanted to show that even though we often remember things differently as various countries, there is still a lot that connects us that we have in common. And although the exhibition begins with the years before the war itself is told only briefly. The main focus is on what came after, yes. So on the consequences and transformations that followed the Great War. And as you see, the exhibition is now available online, together with its catalog in both Polish and English. And as far as I know, this catalog will be also included to the materials you will receive after our webinar, so you don't have to look for it right now. We also, on this virtual exhibition, we also offer an audio option. However, right now we have a bit some technical problems, so it will be soon added again and available in English and Polish, because right now it's only available in Polish, this virtual curators tours, but it's really nice to use it as well. So it is also worth mentioning that the catalog can also serve as a great teaching source, and it's basically full transfer of exhibition into book form. So it contains nearly all of the photographs, maps, and infographics that are on the exhibition that are displayed here. And and as I said, it's also available on our website. And And what I would like to also stress during my short presentation, short introduction to this exhibition, is that we believe that this project exhibition, virtual exhibition, can also be an inspiring tool for teaching 20th century history. Of course, we know and we are aware of the fact that exploring the online version of the exhibition with whole class, with students, might be too long, time-consuming, and impossible. But all the maps, graphics, materials that are on that exhibition can be also downloaded, and we believe that they can be used as teaching aids. And before I introduce a few examples of, in my opinion, very interesting, appealing educational resources, as a person who was involved in producing this exhibition, let me briefly explain the structure of the exhibition and how to navigate it online. So the virtual version is what's I think the most important about, maybe not most, but very important about the online this online version of the exhibition is that it allows you to experience the design concept of the project of this exhibition, and its structure is a reminiscent of scaffolding, can be interpreted in various ways. However, for me personally, it symbolizes something that is still in the process of being built, under construction. So it reflects the fragility and complexity of the post-1918 Central Europe and the concept of Central Europe itself that was developed during interwar times. So it also shows the region of overlapping identities, languages, cultures, but also competing nationalisms and conflicting memories. And the layout of the exhibition, as you can see, if you could present the plan of that exhibition right now, it would be great, because the layout of the exhibition is a square shaped, as you can see on that plan, and it's also organized both chronological and thematic. And each section is numbered, and so if you click on the edge of the cube, as Ula already did, the title of each section appears. And the outer part of that exhibition introduces the context of early 20th century, the cultural diversity of Europe, the dominance of old empires, the causes that led to global conflict. And then the story goes to the course of the war and the two Russian revolutions, but they are also outside this square. And all these stories show how war revolutions shaped social tensions across Europe. And the inner part, that is the core of our exhibition, actually tells the story of the end of the war, the emergence of new states, the signing peace treaties, and the process of shaping new borders. Here we also explore border conflicts, and as I mentioned at the beginning, politics of remembrance, the ways in which different societies commemorated the war, but during the interwar period. This is also important because we divide these two things. So the contemporary memory and the memory of that was during interwar period. That was also important. And in the very center of that square, you can find a social history section. So here we tell more about human losses, destruction, economic consequences of the war, but also the transformation processes, the process of modernization that followed, as well as the rich cultural of the richness of cultural richness of Europe of that time. So in terms of linguistic, ethnic diversity of this region, and so on. And the final part that is called Afterwards focuses on present-day memories of this period, which are often fragmented and conflicting. And this is precisely the material that I would like to recommend you first as a very powerful resource for history lessons. And you can find it if you press the number 10, as I remember. Yes, exactly. And yeah, so actually this part of material is a collection of texts and visuals showing the diversity of memories related to years 1918, 1923. It reveals how the same events, the peace treaties, border wars, and uprisings, plebiscites, and many other, are remembered differently in different countries, depending on historical experience and consequences. And for students, I believe that it can be a very meaningful lesson. It can teach them that facts and memory are not the same, that each community builds its own narrative, shaped by emotions, politics, culture, many interests, and that European history is a web of interconnected memories, not a set of isolated national stories. So I think that it might be really interesting for students. This material is also perfect for introducing concepts such as collective memory, politics of memory, national myths, trauma, heroization, revisionism, and many others that you can find also in narratives of that section. In the narrative of that section. It also helps students understand that memory of war is not only about the past, it's also a part of our contemporary identities and politics. So I think it's very crucial nowadays. And it shows that our countries did not develop in isolation, of course, that decisions made in Paris, Versailles, Trianon affected many states at once in the same time, and that experiences of violence, rebuilding, hope, were shared across the region. Yes, so they were very, again, that it tells something that it tells that we have a lot in common, even though we are so different. And the second resource I would like to recommend is a set of maps. Yes, so here I would like to highly recommend 3 maps, in particular the language map that all these maps you will also find in your materials, but I would like to stress that in my opinion the language map is very useful, that it can show how diverse Europe was at the beginning of the 20th century, and it can help to visualize this diversity to students. And 2 other maps are, first is the map of revolutions that spread across Europe during the Great War and soon after it, and another map that also depicts the border wars and how they actually also affected this region. So for teachers, especially from our region, Central European countries, but not necessarily only, these maps are, I believe, are an excellent way to show that nation building and border struggles were again a common regional experience, not just experience of each country, national one. So they help visualize how deeply interconnected those post-war conflicts were. And third and last, but maybe not least, but in right now last part of last set of materials that I would like to recommend you is my favorite one actually, and is also my favorite part of that exhibition. And you can find it on number 12. It's the 6 newsreels. Each of these short films is a thematic collage of archival footage that we found in international movie archivals. And these movies bring together authentic images from various European countries. They can be yeah, they are kind of cinematic summary of the whole exhibition, and the same time a perfect starting point for classroom discussions about memory, emotions, history, so many other topics. And what is unique about these movies is that they capture the atmosphere of the time, beginning from grief or a devastation to enthusiasm and reconstruction after the Great War. So I believe that they allow students to literally step into the past to see the faces, gestures, and streets of the 1920s capital cities of especially Central Europe, that in a way that no written source can truly convey. So these films are also kind of or can create kind of visual and linguistic bridge between the past and the present. They show that a silent film with captions that is actually here was in a way a sort of ancestors of today's visual storytelling. So short videos, social media clips, video essays that are so popular among teenagers. And it makes history more accessible and recognizable for students growing up in the world full of images, emoticons, and images as most of all. And it's also, so I think that's the most important from me right now. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. But I think that it would be also important to mention that some of these materials that we have on this exhibition, we have also in languages of countries that where the exhibition was presented. So we plan to publish some of them on High Story Lesson website as well. But if you are particularly interested in some of materials that could be available in other language than English or Polish, please let us know, write to me or to Ula, and we will do our best to provide you this material. So thank you right now and for your attention, and I would like to yield floor to Iza, who will also show and tell more about her unique and original educational materials. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ewelina. And there was a question on chat, how can we find the materials? So I'm gonna send you an email after our meeting with all the links, and also I'll do it right now to post it on chat. So basically, as Ewelina mentioned, there is this online exhibition, so this part, and there is a lesson on High Story Lessons online platform, which is called A New Europe. And there you can find the catalog, the presentation Isa is going to present, free maps mentioned by Ewelina, and also a short movie. So everything's here. And maybe one thing, I tried to show that when Ewelina was speaking, but you can download each a resource. So if you find something interesting and you want to print it or hand it to students, or send not the whole page, but only the element of that, so we can click here and it's gonna be downloaded in the PDF file. Yeah. So once again, thank you, Ewelina, and I give the floor to Isa.
Yes, so thank you very much for your introduction, and I have to say that I'm really delighted that I can present you some of my recent research. I would like to add that I'm an expert of the social history in the interwar period, and I wrote a lot on the inflation and hyperinflation at the beginning of the 1920s, but some of these materials I found especially for this presentation, and I had to dig in some topics, especially for this presentation. So I hope it will be somehow inspiring for you. And let me share my not short, but this really long presentation.
It's good.
Is everything all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. So as you know, and as Ewelina mentioned, our today's webinar focuses on the social history of Central and Eastern Europe after the First World War. Specifically, we will look at the economic and social consequences of the Great War from this perspective of children. And sources describing and showing children's experience and testimonies will guide us through the post-war period. But at the beginning, I would like to say something about this perspective and this perspective of children in history and about childhood history, childhood studies. Yes, and this is a perspective that obviously gives a voice to a group that is usually not heard, namely children and teenagers. But as childhood researchers, James Martin and Misha Honek put it, the primary mission of the childhood studies is not to simply add another social group, so children, to the already existing canvas of past events, but repaint that canvas altogether. Because this approach focuses not only on bringing out of the voices of children and teenagers, but also at looking at their experience, but also on looking at politics, culture, and society in the past in a different way. On the one hand, looking at the history of children very often highlights social and political problems. Wars affect children more profoundly than it affects adults ones. But on the other hand, looking at children's brings new discoveries. So, for example, it says a lot about social relations, power relations, but also about state policy. For example, in the interwar period, children became target for nation states. On the one hand, these states developed childcare and tried to mitigate the negative consequences of the Great War for children and teenagers. And on the other hand, they wanted to raise children as their citizens, assign them to the nation, and make them future soldiers, which led to militarization and instrumentalization of childhood. Looking at story from at history from the perspective of children opens up new marginalized voices and triggers our sensitivity. And when this perspective is introduced into a teaching process, it also gives our pupils the opportunity to show solidarity with the children of the past, to identify with children, to identify with other children. At the same time, it allows us to look differently at the dominant narratives, for example, how we interpret patriotism or citizenship. It provides scope for critical analysis of sources. It also makes us reflect on current education policies. So I hope that this presentation will be really inspiring and somehow interesting for you. But before I move on to discussing the topics and materials I have prepared for you, I would like to ask whether in your teaching practice or during history lessons, did you refer to children's testimonies or to sources that show children? Could you write it on shortly on our chat? Okay. So now we have two voices. The first one, that this perspective is rather not present in the teaching process, and the second one, and the second one, that it is present, but regarding to the Second World War. Okay.
You can change to write to everyone, because two of you wrote only to hosts and panelists. It means
Okay,
that we
yes.
see that, but not all of you. So yeah, we're gonna also read your answers. So if there may be anyone else, if you mentioned any children testimonies in your history teaching, when it was, in which context, in which topic.
So Mariana wrote, yes, so we can see this domination of the Second World War in answers. So I hope that this presentation will be could help you to tell the children's stories also in the context of the Great War and the aftermath of the Great War. And at the beginning, I would like to touch on the very difficult topic. So the topic of military and civilian losses, which for many children in the interwar period meant orphanhood. So in the course of a military operation, all the countries involved in the Great War lost nearly 10 million soldiers, while over 21 million were wounded. Many of men of many different nationalities in Eastern and Central Europe who didn't have their own states had fought against each other in imperial armies. So, for example, around 350,000 Poles were killed fighting in three armies, so Prussian, Russian, and Austro-Hungarian. Moreover, warfare, hunger, and various diseases took the lives of millions of civilians. So some of these children had also lost their mothers. Hence, the war and its aftermath gave rise to a particularly vulnerable and fragile group of child victims, so war orphans. This group included children whose fathers had fallen in battle, who had disappeared, or who had not yet returned home. And the loss of parents was perhaps the most life-changing experience for children who lived through war. And the death of a parent was often the trigger for a child's displacement and the trauma of a refugee life. So in this presentation, you will also find this basic historical information. So you don't have to know, but then we will send you this presentation and you can download it on the website. Most of Europe's war and post-war societies witnessed the massive presence of these child victims and responded in various ways to rescue the orphans and secure their future survival. And the sources proposed here concern Polish lands in 1919. The first excerpt is an excerpt from a book by William Group, who was Herbert Hoover envoy, and he provided a relief aid in Poland. He described here the fate of war orphans and their mothers. And I have combined this moving source with 2 donation cards. Maybe I will wait a while to with 2 donation card. They were distributed to raise money for aid and food for children who had lost their fathers. This donation cards shows the community's commitment and concern for the fate of orphans, and at the same time, they can be used during the lessons to analyze how orphans were portrayed and what motives were used to appeal to people's generosity. Here we can see some Christian motives, so the crosses, and here we have the crown of thorns, thus referring to the suffering of Christ and Christian mercy. These materials can be used for individual or group analysis, but discussing them obviously requires appropriate typological sensitivity and caution, as they concern the loss of parents. So it probably be a very difficult topic. Especially for younger pupils. So we have some questions or not? Okay.
That's good. I'm on chat.
Okay. So I'm aware that this kind of sources are really difficult to analyze during the lesson. And they probably shouldn't be dedicated to the young pupils. The second of the proposal of the proposed topics is forced migration, which is also important in view of contemporary migration and the presence of refugees from Ukraine in our countries. And during the Great War, Central and Eastern Europe experienced displacement, evacuation, and deportation on a massive scale. From the outset of the conflict, the roads and pathways of East Prussia, Bukovina, Galicia, and Serbia were flooded with refugees. And a few months later, the Russian army deported or also suspected so German colonists and Jews, but also Russians evacuated a huge group of Polish citizens, so, Orthodox, so-called bieżeńcy. None of the fighting parties shied away from local displacement, which were justified on strategic grounds. And British historian Peter Guttrell has estimated about 10 million people who were expelled or displaced in Central and Eastern Europe. However, all these figures remain only approximate estimates. But undoubtedly, the largest group of these refugees were peasants and Jews, among them women and children. And therefore, we don't have many first-hand sources about their experience. Escape and evacuation were obviously frightening. And migrants were often placed in special camps where living conditions were really difficult and the risk of disease was really high. And during the escape, children were sometimes separated from their mother and from their family. At the same time, the refugees aroused hostility and resentment among the communities in which they found themselves and were accused of the crimes of posing a threat to health and morality. But at the end of war, many people try to return to their homes. And from revolutionary Russia, as I mentioned, the so-called bieżeńcy, mainly Orthodox Christians who had been evacuated deep into Russia, wanted to return to their homeland. Also, Poles who were evacuated by the Tsarist authorities wanted to return to Poland. The Austrian, Czechoslovak, and Hungarian authorities tried to force war refugees to return to Galicia. This move of people was really huge just after the war, and the nation states and border changes also led to new forced migration. For example, there was a group of so-called optants, that is, citizens who could declare their national identity according to the Treaty of Versailles. And in the case of Poland, these people declared German citizenship and left Poland in the 1920s. And prepared materials showed, on the one hand, the difficult living condition of refugees in camps. So, for example, here we have an excerpt of the letter to the Austrian authorities. And in this letter, there is the description of the many difficulties and life conditions in the refugee camps in Sapar in Hungary. And on this photo, you can see a refugee camp in Kovel, so on the territory, on the Ukrainian, Polish-Ukrainian territories. There are some photos to describe these difficulties and the life conditions of refugees and migrants. But on the other hand, from the perspective of children, the situation could look completely different. And here we have a part of the quite famous reportage of Aneta Prymaka-Oniszk about this bieżeńcy, so this Orthodox refugees. And it showed the perspective of children who quickly adapt to the conditions in which they find themselves, and resettlement becomes part of their child reality. It is, I think, a really good source to analyze how this perspective of children could be totally different than the perspective on adults. So I would like to ask you, what questions would you ask about this type of sources? Could you answer on our chat?
So what question can be asked to students when
To
displaying
students, yes.
when displaying
Yes,
such
yes,
source?
to students, to pupils during the lessons.
I can also put this quote on chat and you can go on, Isa, I think.
I
Yeah?
think.
Yeah, I would just,
Oh, there is a really great task to write a diary entry or a letter to missing parents or children in the refugees camp. So I move on to the third topic. So the topic of epidemics. The third topic is important for showing the consequences of the Great War, which until a few years ago would have sounded quite abstract for us, but after the experience of the COVID pandemic, they can also become a contribution to the conversation about the experience of children on the pandemic experiences and their feelings connected with this experience. But now I would like to say in the interwar period. So from the 1980s to the 1920s, more lives were lost due to the influenza pandemic, so the Spanish flu, and then to war. This information could be quite shocking. Estimates of the death toll of this pandemic vary from 21 million to 100 million lives worldwide. And the mutated influenza virus first struck the United States, then Europe, Asia, Australia, and North Africa. But at the second part of the 1920s, it was noted in Central and Eastern Europe. Over the next few months, this region suffered the most, and people under age of 18 were most frequently victims of the flu virus. Sorry, I have some problems with this presentation. Here, to illustrate the threat this disease posed to children, I have prepared statistics from two Slovak cities, Bratislava and Košice, which show that the victims of Spanish flu are mainly people under the age of 18. This is completed by the story of Hungarian family, Czolnai from Budapest, in which the mother died of Spanish flu, and it was really difficult to get help for the second child. And this story can be used to, I think, brainstorm why the sick boy had trouble to admit to hospital and how the health service functioned at this time. Yes. And the photos of children here, the photos of children suffering from typhus fever taken by the Red Cross mission in Poland also show how people try to cope with this different disease. These topics also provide an opportunity to discuss who could help children at a time when countries in Central Europe were just being formed and were in a state of war or revolution, such as Poland or Hungary. This is certainly the second difficult topic to discuss with children and young people. And I would like to ask you, at what level of education can you see these topics as a subject to discussion and to show such photos like this? But maybe I leave this question and move on. Fortunately, the next two topics are a bit lighter and have more positive aspects. So the first one concerns, it sounds dreadful, but there are some hope and positivity elements. So the first one is malnutrition, hunger, and famine just after the war. Because the war and the blockage imposed by the Alice on the Central Powers led to serious problems in the supply of basic foodstuff in Central and Eastern Europe. And at the end of the First World War, there were hunger riots in Vienna, Krakow, Leipzig, Hamburg, and Berlin. However, the situation didn't improve immediately after the end of the war, and the explanation you can find in this presentation. This led to the threat of malnutrition and starvation for entire population, including children and young people. Nutritional deficiency had a significant impact on children's development, as confirmed by demographic studies, which at the end of the war recorded a decrease in the height of pupils in German schools, but also in Krakow schools, and an increase in weight loss in girls and boys compared to children of the same age in 1914. This research also showed that children from working class families were in a much worse situation than the children from the middle class, obviously. Although a return to a proper nutrition allows young bodies to quickly make up for lost time, children who experience the war and the return to normality usually remain slightly shorter than their peers. So here we can really long-lasting consequence of the war. And in Central and Eastern Europe, the huge relief was the help of the American American Relief Administration, and organization like the Red Cross. The ARA fed millions of children in the countries of Central Europe, and coordinated its activities with local medical institution and American Swedish Red Cross to combat the spread of disease and supply hospitals and laboratories with medicines and equipment. Children and young people were the main recipients of this aid. And here I have prepared a very diverse set of sources for you on this topic: maps, statistics, and photographs. The first map shows the regions of hunger and famine in Europe. And I think it could be really compared with the second one, so the places with this American Relief Administration aid map. To what extent did we can ask to what extent did the areas of famine identified by the American Food Administration coincide with food aid deliveries? And another interesting sources for students to analyze is the growth chart of girls from Stuttgart, which clearly shows the period of stagnation during the war. So here. And the growth that occurred when American aid arrived. And I think that this is my favorite example, so the example of children in Vienna, because in Vienna, so the capital of Austria-Hungary, at the end of the war, the supplies were really bad. And in 1918, hunger riots broke out there regularly. And there were many children in need of food in Vienna. A study of municipal leaders showed that in Vienna, that 90% of Venice school children were suffering from malnourishment, and by 1921, over 70% of all school children in Vienna between the ages of 6 to 14 were served a daily meal through international food aid. And here there is a photo from the film, showing a meal in a children's canteen. I hope that we will also be able to access this film and to put this film on the website. So I hope it will be available for you to show. And however, even based on these photographs, we can attempt to analyze with what the children were given for lunch. And the next material, a photograph and description from Poland, describe how meals were prepared for Jewish children. So the difficult subject of malnutrition can be a good starting point for a discussion of different cultures, different religions, diversity, and everyday life at the post-war period. And the last set of sources we have for you concerns post-war inflation and hyperinflation. This is the short description of the economic situation at the beginning of 1920s. So the year 1923 is a symbol of the hyperinflation in Europe because of the great hyperinflation in Germany, but also the hyperinflation in Poland and Hungary. Austria had already experienced a rapid price increase in 1922. And all these problems were connected with the financial policy during the war. But the economic difficulties stayed longer and affected the daily life at the beginning of 1920s. And for this subject, I prepare some photos. So photos, this difficult economic subject matter and the decline in the value of money can be discussed quite easily in the case using photographs of German children. The first one shows how little German marks were worth compared to a single dollar. The second one shows how worthless money had become since children could play with it. And I think that on this occasion, you could also try to organize a kind of game in the classroom and show, for example, how much you had to pay for everyday products, which could be really interesting in comparison with some today's card for payments and mobile phone payments. And next resources on inflation are testimonies. So 2 testimonies and an excerpt of the novel of Erich Maria Remarque. So here we have this excerpt of the testimonies, which could be a really good source to analyze and to discuss the influence of the hyperinflation of the family life and daily life routines. And to other sources show the perspective of children from Poland. So the moment, so on the one hand, it shows that these financial problems could change a fate of people, like the fate of Stanisław Kalinowski, who had to drop out of school and start working, and in fact became a worker. And the case of Zdzisław Kaliciński, who described his anxiety connected with the hyperinflation, but this situation didn't have any negative impact on his future, which I think could be a good point, good starting point for discussing differences between social classes and groups. And it could be a really good source to show the middle class, the workers, and different groups in the city. So as we see through the prism of children's stories and their fates, we can tell the story of war, the story of society, the story of disease, and the story of economics. But at the end, I would like to ask provocative questions. What is the added value of an exclusive exploration of childhood and children during and after wartime? And I would like to leave you these questions for your own reflection after our webinar. In my opinion, certain processes can be presented more clearly and effectively from a child's perspective, and we also can reflect on the long-term effect of this phenomenon. But at the end, I would like to ask you what opportunities and threats you see in teaching history using these materials connected to the loss, the disease, the difficulties, and if this children perspective is somehow attractive for you and for your teaching practices. Could you shortly answer on our chat?
I also paste on chat link to the presentation and encourage you to write, is this perspective interesting for you as a teachers, educators?
Yes, so we have some positive answers, but probably everyone is
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that this perspective could be really attractive for children and young people.
Actually, maybe Isa, we can launch the poll now. And
Yes.
we will also get maybe some of your voices in the poll, because we thought that maybe we can encourage you to fill a short poll now through Zoom. You can put also your opinions inside, and it would be like a short feedback for us, but it also be, because we've got like 42 experts here, which are teachers and educators,
Yes.
so who work on daily basis with students, and I'll just launch it, and it will be like 5 minutes for you to think about the sources, think about what you heard. So just to recap, that the presentation is structured in 5 topics, and we've got a short introduction. I think that it might be like a lot of text on some of the slides, but it's there because it's an intro, and you can skip the intro and just have a lecture on your own, and then only turn into the sources. So now I launched the poll, and there are like 5 questions, and like majority of them, it's you're just voting on the options. So I just ask you to spend like 4 minutes into feeling that it's just your first impressions. So don't be afraid. It's not, it doesn't need to be like perfect answer and already plan for a lesson, but just your first impressions after Isa's presentation. And you can fill in your national language if it's not a problem for the answer. So just let's give it like 3 minutes to do so. No, I'm sorry, Dara. Yeah, usually I underline that we mean like the Brussels time, so I'm sorry that it wasn't clear that it was like a 5 p.m. There is a recording, so we're gonna provide you with the recording for the like past hour, and so there's a recording, and you will receive the teaching resources Isa mentioned, and we mentioned, Ewelina also mentioned in her presentation before. Yeah, so please do fill, and I'll give you like 3 minutes starting from now. Already 8 people filled. Thank you. That's a pity if the word proofreading is misspelled, because I was the one who put it, not our proofreading. Thank you, Elena. Okay, already 20 of you. Thank you very much. There's 1 minute left to fill the survey. Yeah, there's 1 minute left, and I sent, I think, all the links on chat. I see the answer on Turkish on chat. You can put your answer into the survey. Isa, could you change this slide of shame? Thank you.
So maybe I can stop
Yeah.
to share my.
Yeah. Okay, I think that yeah.
Could I, because I see some questions on research and additional
Go on.
sources and books. So we agree with Ula that in the corrected version of our presentation at the end, I will put you some additional bibliographies, some references to different topics, because, for example, I found also a very interesting article on, on, for example, the home violence after the war and the impact of the loss of fathers on the children and families after the First World War. So I will add these references to my presentation, and we will share you this corrected presentation on the website probably next week. So yes, so I will add some additional information to this topic.
Yeah, so you're gonna receive a presentation. You've got it already, and I'm gonna send it by email like this first version because we're rushing to get it to you today. Yeah, and to next week we're gonna present like the final version. There is one question too I asked, which was that Isa, you presented like very different type of sources, like really different. And I thought that
Yes.
like you personally, but also as a historian, like which type of sources from your perspective let us understand the perspective of children the best?
It's so of course these personal testimonies are really great sources, and fortunately in the interwar period we have also some diary competitions, so we have not only memoirs or some stories written many years after the war, but almost immediately. So I think that this type of sources is really valuable and show us this perspective of children in the best way. Because of course all the statistics and photos are really attractive, and we can understand the conditions of living, but there is not a voice of children.
Ewelina, maybe you want to, thank you, Isa. Maybe you want to also comment on that. You don't need to, but if you want, you can.
No, I don't want.
Okay.
Yeah, it was great, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if Isa answered question of Barbara about the loss of fathers and yeah, and the perspective.
Could you read it? Could you read it, Ewelina? You have it?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Is there any research that you know which deals with the impact of the loss of fathers in World War I and its impact of World War II, as I assume? Yeah. So I think this is a really interesting question, and
yes. So
yes.
so I found some research on orphans and so in fact the loss of fathers for Hungary and probably for Germany. So I will add these references and these books to this bibliography and to the list of articles which can be helpful for you to to tackle these problems on your lesson.
Okay, I think that I'm gonna end the poll finally, and we've got like really a big majority of you who voted, and thank you very much for this feedback because it's really valuable for us. I think that maybe I can share only maybe the closed questions, so the one which were like a survey questions. So could you see the responses now? Can you see
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Okay. So what can you do with such presentations? So like majority of you said that I can send it to my students as a homework or additional source, or you can print it and hand it to the students. Yeah, because we know that you work in like really a big variety of circumstances. So it depends on the school and the setup in your school. And then there was a question, do you have plan to use presentation in your work? Yeah, and like also majority of you will save it and use it for the future. And some of you, like 23% already know when to use it. And that's the feedback for what can be improved in the presentation. So you said that more countries can be covered, or there could be more sources and photos and quotes, maybe posters, maybe some documents, context, information, maybe maps, also to show about which territories we are talking, and more photos. Okay, so stop sharing. Okay, so
And so at the end, I would like to thank you very much for your attention and for this wonderful feedback. It's yes, so I'm really grateful for this feedback, and I hope, as I said, that these materials will be somehow inspiring also for your own research.
Thank you very much, Isa, again, because there's like a lot of human touch in your presentation, and I'm really happy that we made it happen with the presentation and with like this. When you put it all together, it's like really a lot of context and a lot of perspectives. So we're really happy for this collaboration, and I see like a lot of thank yous on chat, but still we've got 9 minutes, and we're happy that it was interesting for you. And during this 9 minutes, I would like to tackle one topic more, because the topic of history through children perspective, it's in our interest for now, because we're preparing to launch a new project. Evelina, maybe you can say like a few words about it, and I share another pool we have.
Yeah, so maybe very briefly, I can just say that we are now working hard on commencing new project that will be devoted to children's experiences in 20th century. So not only during the first half of the century, but we would like to take into account the whole 20th century. And why it is so important, I think it was already said here by Isa, that children are the most were the most vulnerable witnesses and victims of dramatic upheavals of 20th century. So that's why we think that their perspective, their history is very crucial and important, and it's somehow still invisible in mainstream history that is usually concentrated on adults. So that's why we think that it might be very important, and we really hope that you will also find this project interesting, because it's going to be not only academic or scholar project, but also educational. So we really like to have your perspective. So that's why I'm really happy to be here and to hear all your comments and your feedback, because it tells me that it's really something that it's worth working on. So yeah, and here we have another poll. So if you would be, so maybe Ula will tell more about this poll.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry,
Thank
like
you.
a lot of polls, but in this one, there is only one question, and there's like 13 options from the 20th century European history. But we are not only, taking information from you, but there will be like our input too. So please do let us know, and do not vote. I think I didn't put maximum number of answers, so do not vote for everything. Just try to pick 2 or 3 things. Which topic seems to be most interesting for you, and we'll do everything which is possible to like deliver resources on that very topic. There are already 70% of people who participated, and I'm gonna share results in a minute. Just final minute. There's a winner already. Okay. If you didn't manage to vote, you can write on. You can always write on chat, or I'm sure that there are like a lot of other ideas which can be mentioned too. So like 55% of you voted for indoctrination of children under fascist, Nazi, and communist regimes. This is like the most popular option, but also others like exploitation of children by totalitarian states, children in resistant movements, like a lot of votes for different topics, but it's also like a very important feedback for us to consider. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, you can join the newsletter to get like all the updates. So if you manage to publish a new resource, you're going to be informed by the newsletter, because we usually prepare a webinar to sum up some like parts of our work, but you'll be informed if you will subscribe to the newsletter. And saying all that, I would like to end our meeting. Thank you, Elena, also for this voice that on the survey, it is interesting to see how many options are relevant to today. Yeah, basically that's a lot about today's situation. Thank you very much also, Ewelina, for presenting very concisely our exhibition, and we're happy to have it online, and we're really looking forward to also hear your feedback. And there's one information. Via this link, you will find the perspective of young people today reflecting on the story of the First World War, specifically about the bodies that are still being found in our region today. Thank you very much from our partners from the museum in Flanders, in Belgium. So you can also click on that and check the resources. Thank you very much. Dankeschön, Michael. And thank you, Isa, and thank you, Ewelina. And I wish you a very, very nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
You too.